hello everyone and welcome to our bite-sized career development series. Today we're honoured to have Bernadette Thompson, OBE, a trailblazer in equality, diversity and inclusion, joining us. Bernadette is currently the Director of EDI at King's College Hospital, London, and Bernadette has made a significant impact with key roles at Barts Health Trust, the Ministry of Justice and HM Treasury. Her insights have inspired change across sectors and we're thrilled to have her here. Welcome, Bernadette.
Thank you so much.
So I was going to come with an icebreaker and I tore off the calendar that I have. I have a moon calendar on my desktop and today's quote was quite significant. It says, "There's a whole lot of inspiration in the air today, so relax, meditate to some beautiful music and talk to someone who inspires you. Also, take a moment to think about what you're grateful for." So with that said, I'd like to ask you, Bernadette, what inspires you?
Gosh, what inspires me? I think, what inspires me? Several things inspire me. I think for me, it's, making a difference to people's lives. That gives me energy, that gives me inspiration. I think for me, I'm a Christian, so my gospel music, you will never see me without my beats in the morning. So I usually get a lot of inspiration from my gospel music. But I think certainly what inspires me is, seeing people fulfilled within the workplace, people progress and get to the point where they want to within their career. So seeing people thrive is something that really inspires me, especially to do more.
Well, thanks again for being here, Bernadette. And could you share a bit about your career journey, the challenges you've faced and any pivotal moments that shaped your path?
So I suppose I'll talk about my career in a few blocks. So I'm not your typical NHS person. I've worked in the NHS for about 2 years. Prior to that, I spent 23 years in the UK civil service across a number of government departments, some that you've mentioned, Justice, Treasury, Cabinet Office, Home Office, some others. If I was going to chunk up my career, first bit of my career was in debt recovery, debt management, and I always add at this point that I am a nice person. Don't judge me because I worked in debt recovery. But the other bit of my career, really intentionally, I moved into HR. And, it was really wanting to make a difference to people's lives. I got to the point in debt recovery where, I was the highest collector, I'd done everything. There was nothing new I felt for me to do. But I got more joy from supporting people in the workplace, making sure people had a good lived experience within the workplace. And that's what kind of led me to HR. But I suppose when we talk about challenges, several challenges, I suppose, within the workplace. And so being some of a particular age bracket, let me say that. If we go back a few decades, the workplace was totally different for women. If you think about flexible working, that was more or less non-existent. So being someone that had 2 children within the workplace was pretty tough, juggling that, being able to pick them up from school, and all the other bits and pieces that comes around having kids and being a working mother. So I suppose that in itself for me was a challenge. There was a point in my career where I was the only woman within the senior management team. And that was a struggle. They would set meetings at some really annoying times. And so that in itself. I suppose the other aspect, being someone of color, being an ethnic minority, and I'm not going to talk of all the data that exists there. But one of the things that I have never failed to do is to speak up and speak out. I was a trade union rep for about 10 years. And so I suppose that helped and supported me somewhat to be able to speak truth to power and lay bare some uncomfortable truth. So if something wasn't right for me, I was never slow in coming forward and raising that. And I really do know that not everyone can do that, but this is why I always talk about staff and staff networks, and I always talk about trade union, and they're 2 separate entities who do 2 separate things to support people. But whatever the case may be, throughout people's careers, they will face challenges, let's be real. But what is important is that people don't stay silent, they speak up. As an HR professional, I always say to people, know the policies for yourself. Make sure you read them, you know them. If you need to raise a grievance, do that. If you need to have maybe an early resolution conversation, do that, but make sure you get the support you need. So yeah, throughout my career, there have been ups and downs. It hasn't been a straight line. But what I always say is those bumps in the road have made me stronger, have built my resilience. But certainly for me, I have never, ever remained silent about things that matter. If something is wrong, if I feel that I haven't been treated with dignity and respect, if I feel that equity hasn't been applied, I will speak up. I will table my issues confidently, but with the evidence backed up. And that's what I always say to people. Don't stay silent. Don't suffer in silence. It's not worth it. Speak up. Get the support you need.
So continuing our chat, let's dig into the strengths that have played a crucial role in your career. How did you discover these strengths, and what strategies did you use to navigate uncertain or challenging situations?
Okay, so look, what you see is what you get from me. I am so real, and I think that's important. I'm my authentic self. I do not try to be like someone else, and that has rung through my career, and I believe it's helped me being the best that I can be, but being my authentic self. And so we're never going to be good at everything. That is a fact, and I think a lot of people try too hard to be good at everything. It's not possible. And I think in a society where sometimes there's that blame culture, oh, it's your fault, I'll never be good at everything. But in my career, what I was good at, I tried to be great at. And I remember when I was in the Treasury, all of us got this book during the induction, I think it was the induction, and it was a book called Strength Finder. Mm-hmm. And it taught you to kind of look at, analyze your skills. What are you good at? And what are you not so good at? And what are you going to do about it? Are you going to die in a ditch over what you're not so good at? And no matter how much you try, you possibly might not be good at it. Mm-hmm. But what are you already good at? How can you invest in that to be great at that? And that's what I did. I focused on the thing that I was good at, and I became great at that. And so as I progressed within my career, the thing that I was not so good at, I could always employ someone in the team to do that. And I think a lot of the time we try too hard. And the system often focuses on, we've tried to stop saying the areas of weakness. I say development areas. What are your areas that need development? Analyze those skills. Now, if there's something, I'll give an example. I used to be a sports journalist many decades ago I did it for about 12 months. And so my writing is a particular style. Now, when I was in the civil service, at one point during my career, I had to write briefings for ministers and very senior people. My writing style, summarized by one of my line managers, is, Bernie, your style is quite colorful. So it meant that if I needed to write a briefing for a minister, I needed to do it way in advance. 26 drafts down the line, I'll probably get the right pitch. But did I continuously focus on that aspect? No, I made sure I started, when I needed to start, 20 drafts down the line, I would get it to the right, level. However, fast forward, me leading in a team. Got someone in the team who can write briefings in the style they need to. And so for anyone out there listening to me, my advice is always analyze your skills. What are you good at already? What can you become great at? The development, the areas that need development, what do you need to do now to help you get by until you get maybe to another role? But don't beat yourself over the head because you're not good at something. Try, as I said, I would always need to start writing my briefings way in advance before the deadline. But that book, Strength Finder, you can Google it, you'll find it out there. That's how I've kind of lived my career. But what I've always done is invest in self and find out who is the best in class. What does the best in class look like? Therefore, what do I need to do? Do I need to undertake a course? Do I need to listen to a couple of TED Talks? Do I need to record myself and play myself back? That might not be nice the first time. But it's always thinking about what can I do to invest in self. I always say to people, it is your career, own it, and it is your career, drive it. Do not rely on someone else to do the legwork for you. And so this is where, the organization indeed has a role to play to support you. Yes, your line manager has to support you. However, it is your career. You take ownership of it. What do you need to get to the next level? What do you need to be better at what you're already good at, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a kind of things that have supported me during my career.
Right, thank you very much. So as we delve into your career, it's clear that challenges were part of the journey. Could you share instances where you faced challenges related to racism or biases, and how did you handle these situations, and what advice do you have for our viewers dealing with these similar challenges?
Right, first thing that I will say is I think it's really important for people to protect their mental health. No organization is worth dying in a ditch for at all. At all. My physical health, my mental health is really important. And so if I'm in a space where I don't feel that I belong, it is tedious, getting up in the morning, it fills me with sadness to go into work, I'm leaving that organization. And I have left such organizations in the past. However, if something is fundamentally wrong in that organization, I feel that it's my duty to let the top of the tree know. So whenever I've left any organization, I've always spoken to the chief exec, permanent secretary, to say, you know what, I'm off, but I just want you to know this is what I think you need to do to improve in your organization. So no organization is worth you damaging your mental health. If it's not working for you, look, the NHS is a big place, the civil service is a big place, you can leave, you're not tied to your desk, you can leave. So that's one thing. The second thing that I would say is, if something isn't right, you can speak up. That's why we have processes, policies, practices. Throughout my career, I think I've raised 5 grievances around performance. And so I'm usually quite clear when I start in a role. What does good look like? What does great look like? I ask the line manager, what does it look like? Because I want to be the best that I can be. I used to be a long distance runner. I am super competitive. I want to be the best. I want my team to be the best. That's just me. And so I would ask the question, what does good look like? Let's be clear. What are my objectives? Okay, you want me to pick 5 apples. By when? What kind of apples? So that if I pick 10 apples, we are really clear I have exceeded the target. So that is the way I operated throughout the majority of the time of my career. And so when it came to appraisal time, and I wasn't put, this is going back to civil service days, in the top box, we had kind of the bottom, the middle, the top, and the very top. And there were things that came to people who were in the very top. And so I would establish what does good look like, and I would always aspire to be great. And so with the evidence in front of me, if my rating was not great, like, let's have a conversation. You said I should pick 5 apples. I've picked 10. And after picking 10, I went along and picked 20 pears as well. Please, can you tell me how is it even possible that I'm not great? I didn't even just pick the 20 pears. I went to another organization and brought, do you see what I mean? And table the evidence. And those are the things that I did. Was I upset that, I wasn't yeah, I was. But I dealt with the evidence and followed the process. For those 5 instances, those 5 grievances, they were overturned, and the right rating was afforded to me. And this is why I always say we must not keep silent about things that matter. I suppose a direct racism that some colleagues have felt in the workplace, no, I haven't really experienced that. I think being a trade union rep really did help me because no one wanted to mess with me as well. I co-chaired a cross-government race network for about 5 years. And so I think with those, it was almost, okay, you don't want to mess with her because I think, the little microaggressions that you will face within your working career as a person of color, I'm sharply always going back to the person to say, no, you didn't just do that to me, don't do it again. So I will really always have that conversation to say, don't do that, let's not do that. But what I always say that I'm always conscious that people are not in a similar position at me. I'm quite confident, and I'm quite, if it's wrong, it's wrong. I will call it out. And this is why I'm a massive advocate for trade unions and for employee network groups. I always say to people, you get good support from employee network groups. You see people that look like you, sound like you, probably have had similar lived experience as you, and you can take solace from some of that. But let's not get that twisted. They do not replace your trade union. And I always use some very senior colleagues as examples. If, for example, a permanent secretary can be a member of a trade union, and they can support him if he's going through, him or her, if they're going through a bit of trouble. Who am I as a more junior person not to? I do know you need to pay your dues at the trade union rep, and we think it's a bit like insurance. But you never know when you fall into that bumpy road. Don't be caught unawares. The trade unions are not employee network groups. And I've been members of both and led to some respect both. So yeah, I have experienced bumps in my career. You will always have the line manager from hell, the Muppet line manager. But for me, it's built my resilience. And if I look back in time, some of the Muppets I had as line managers, I'm actually looking for them to thank them, because I'm like Teflon. Nothing can faze me in my career now. But I always talk about my Christian faith from a resilience point of view. I'm telling you, when I put on my my gospel music, my BBC Winers, everything kind of melts away and gives you that warm fuzzy feeling. But no, adversity will always come. Adversity. I could go on and on about stuff that has happened, but I go back to the first point I made. No organization is worth you damaging your mental health. You can walk. I have walked, dropped my grievance, and see you, I'll come back and hear it, and left to another organization. So please, 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 anyone listening to me, don't feel that you have to stay. You don't. No, UK PLC is a big place. There are loads of other organizations that you can take your amazing self to. But one thing I will end with is be real to yourself. If it's racism, let it be racism. If you're wishy-washy, slapdash, your work isn't great, is it really racism? Is it any of those isms? Is it you yourself? You need to get a grip and perform better. So I always say self-assess, and I'm not talking about HMRC. Assess yourself. Yeah. What do you need to do? Is your work on point? Are you always that person that's late into work, never meets the deadline, never able to present themselves in the right way at the meeting? And so let's make sure that when we're talking about this, we have the balanced view. Yes, indeed, there's so many isms within the workplace, but for people, I always say self-assess. What do you need to do? What do you need to improve on?
I do want to talk about the importance of, in the sense of career progression now, as opposed to the biases and the racism side. Let's look at the positives. How valuable is networking in light of assessing your goals and your career path?
Oh my goodness. So I learned the hard way. I really did learn the hard way. So people don't believe it when I say I'm an introvert. I love my own space. I love hanging out with my hoodie in my bed. I don't like socializing. I would rather speak to myself than any other person. But from a career perspective, I learned that late. I remember when I was in Justice, Minister of Justice especially, I would look down into the atrium and I would see all these people and I wonder what they're talking about. And I didn't understand the art of networking until very late in my career. But when I understood the power of networking, and so it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. And I do a lot of talks around personal brand. I don't care if you're the best person in your best project manager in your organization. If no one knows that, hello. And so what I've done over the last at least decade is really work on my personal brand. What do I stand for? What is my mission? Who needs to know about my mission? Where does power sit within my organization? Who do I need to hang out with, network with? And that is what I've done intentionally. When I was in the civil service, there was hardly any permanent secretary that didn't know me. I would look for them, find them, connect with them, and have a plan to have a one-to-one with them. And a lot of the time, people think, you don't want to go and bother the senior person. I was the opposite. I wanted to find them. I wanted to shadow them. I wanted them to mentor me. And so I would always ask. I was mentored by the Chief People Officer of the Civil Service at the time, Rupert McNeil. Hello, Rupert, just in case you see this. And it was absolutely brilliant from a career perspective that somebody really senior in the organization leads the profession. I'm somewhere in the profession. And so hanging out with him and him saying, well, okay, what do you want? What are your aspirations? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What do you need to do now to help you get there? Shadowing people, especially senior people, before I got to the board, shadowing people, listening to those conversations. So it's really important to broaden out your network, network across boundaries, across industries. And so even when I was in the civil service, I was networking outside in the private sector, in other sectors, just to understand from my profession's point of view what that looked like. One thing, especially for ethnic minority colleagues, people of color, we don't have those broad networks, and therefore we need to create them. If I talk from an NHS perspective, if we think that a lot of our workforce are internationally educated people, and so the networks that exist within the UK, they don't have that. They didn't go to school with, do you see what I mean? They might have had networks in their country of origin where they schooled, but coming to the UK, they're almost at a disadvantage. And so reaching out and networking with people and finding out who are the movers and shakers within your particular area is quite important. So I've been intentional. If you go back to my first point, I'm an introvert. So when I network with intent. When I'm going to a meeting, when I go into a room, I'm really not talking to everybody per se. I always do my homework. Who do I need to speak to in this room? Because it's actually drains my energy talking to so many people. And so that is what I have done. I would say the latter bit of my career, really building my personal brand. What do I stand for? What is my message? What is my vision? What is my backdrop? When people see my face, what do they say? What do I stand for? So when people see me, they will know that I stand for fairness, equity, and so on and so forth. I always talk about LinkedIn. I always ask people who is on LinkedIn. If I'm doing, if this was live, I'll be saying, how many of you are on LinkedIn? And some people will raise their hand with a bit of swagger. And then my next question is, well, are you a statue on LinkedIn? And you can see them looking. There's no point in being on those social media platforms if you're not networking, if you're not posting anything. So that is a way to build your personal brand. I was a blogger, so they would say, oh, who wants to do a piece? I'll be the first person to put up my hand. Oh, who wants to do a talk? I'm here today. I'm one of those that will put up my hand. So my advice to people is, within your profession, how are you networking? Within your organization, how are you networking? The NHS is massive. How are you networking outside of the NHS? We have NHS England, NHS Confed, NHS providers. I've only been in the NHS now for 2 years, but people don't believe me when I say that. And so it's how you push your personal brand, what you stand for.
It's interesting because I didn't want to use the term imposter syndrome, because I believe that nobody really is an imposter. We are supposed to be where we are because of the skills and experience and the drive and the creativity. So saying that though, and for somebody who is looking to network and looking back over the years as how networking has changed from when you started until present day, what advice would you give to someone about overcoming those challenges of feeling that you're completely, deer in headlights in those situations, but knowing that you can back what you say?
Absolutely. Look, someone said to me, I'll never forget, Joe Montgomery, he was the first Black Director General in a department for levelling up. It was called MHCLG at the time, Ministry of Housing. He said, if you ever want to be a leader, I'll never forget, he said, have 3 speeches ready. One about yourself. So I'll just Stop with that one. No one can say your journey like the way you would say it, and no one can argue with you, can they? It's my story, it's my journey. So you can get that neat and tidy. When we talk about networking, I'll come back to the speech in a minute. When we talk about networking, hello, my name is, I work for this. Where do you work? Nice to meet you. That's the way it starts. The other person is nervous as well. And so we need to get over ourselves. I always say people, get over yourself. Especially when you're speaking, sometimes, what would they say? It's not about you. It's about the audience. And so there's some, TED Talks. I love TED Talks. A good way to get over yourself. Yes, does imposter syndrome? Of course it does. Why? Because we'll always think, it's the system. I don't talk as well as blah, blah, blah. I don't sound as, well, what can I offer? That's the thing. But everyone can inspire. Everyone is a leader. Everyone can add value. I always say to the younger people in the organization, go back to your secondary school. Go back to your primary school. Because remember when you were young and you look, I wish I could be like, and that everyone can inspire. Everyone is an inspiration. I don't care what anyone says. You can always inspire someone somewhere to do better. And the basic definition of leadership is if you inspire someone to be better, to fulfill their potential, you're a leader. And so imposter syndrome I even hate that word. Let's call it nervousness. Oh yes, of course it exists. Anytime I'm doing a big, I'm always nervous. I just go into a quiet space. I do a bit of my Amy Cuddy power posing, speaking to myself, whatever it takes. Really playing some real gospel, big tune, I know who I am, kind of dancing in the loo before I go on stage, whatever it takes. And so sometimes you need to force yourself to do stuff. So the first time I started public speaking, I always tell this story. I had been attending this conference for years. And it got to a point, I started talking to myself that, Bernie, you could say what this person is saying. Seriously? And I remember getting quite critical that, what are they saying? I don't even agree with that. And so I muscled up the courage to email the organization. And when you get that, you just have to do it. So I said, hi, I'm Bernadette Thompson. I've been attending your conference for so long. You're looking for speakers. Happy to volunteer myself, send. And then after I sent, I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, they're not going to respond. Oh my goodness. Within about 48 hours, they responded. I was like, oh my God, oh my dear, what am I going to do? They said, would you like to speak at this particular place? I'm like, oh my God. What am I going to do? What am I going to say? And so I got in contact with a close friend of mine. And this is why networking matters. He's an extrovert. Rob Neal, in case you watch that, I'm talking about you. He's an extrovert. People that, honestly, he's, polar opposites. And so I said, Rob, look, I've got this gig. Can you come and do it with me? Because, I'm slightly nervous. And so he came and we did it. It was really good. We got amazing feedback. And then they called me back again. And I'm like, Rob, you know what? Clear off. I don't need you this time. I think I've got this. And so it's really putting yourself out there. If you do aspire to a senior position, you know that you are going to public speak at some point. Start with your leadership journey. Share it with someone in your team. Write a blog. Do a little, LinkedIn post with you talking about something. Everyone can add value. Talk about your career. Talk about a particular area that's topical within your profession. But, for me, it's always working on how can I stretch myself. I remember when I was in civil service, I got the opportunity to interview Michael Gove. And I remember when I got the email, Bernie, can you do civil service live? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And then they said, it will be blah, 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 and Michael Gove. And I was like, oh my God. What am I going to do? You know what? I'm just like, nah. And the thing about it is when you're out there and you've encouraged people to push themselves, when it comes to your turn, you're just going to have to live it through. My daughter always reminds me, what about doing it for the experience, Mum? And so it's stuff like that. Opportunities will come to people's doors. Take those opportunities. I've taken loads during my career. Do I feel nervous sometimes? Yes. But, feel the fear and just do it anyway.
Absolutely. I love that saying, because the body can't tell if it's from fear or excitement. So, yeah, thank you. So as we wrap up, let's talk about setting clear career goals. What skills or experiences do you believe are crucial for those aspiring to board positions, and how did you position yourself for these opportunities?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Well, I think it's always important to have a plan. Sorry, I'm going to do a Bible quote, but there's a place in the Bible that says, write the vision, make it plain. Your mentor will ask you, how can I support you? First thing Rupert said to me was, okay, Bernadette, yeah, happy to mentor you. What are your career aspirations? How can I help? Now, it would have been really poor if I said, I don't know really. So being really clear, what are your aspirations? I always say to people, where do you see yourself in 10 years' time? And sometimes people are like, oh my God, 10 years. Guess what? 10 years is not that long. Mm-hmm. But what you do now will inform where you get to in 10 years' time. And so when I spoke to Rupert at the time, I said, oh, Rupert, I want to be an HR director. I remember saying, I remember the emphasis on the small, in a small organization. And he actually laughed and he said, why small? And I didn't really know why small. I think it was that fear. He said, well, let's work with HR director. Okay. Now, in my profession, HR, I was an associate member of the FCIPD. That's our professional body. He said, so in order to be a director, you at least need to be a chartered fellow, which means I needed to be a chartered member. So there's a process. And this is where thinking about 10 years. So what did I need to do now? Okay, you're an associate member. Let's work on your chartered member. Don't worry, I'll support you with it. Oh God, what am I gonna do? And so it's really being clear, one step at a time. What does the next role need to be? So I've got kids. Well, they used to be kids. One is 23, and one is just let him get to university this year, and then that'll be it. But anyway, at the time my kids were much younger. And so for those who are parents or who are mothers, I put my children first. I'm one of those tiger mothers. That's a conversation for another day. And so I would never change role. I would never do something really stretching when my kids had exams. So yeah, I'm one of the 11 plus kind of parent. Yeah, you will swim, you will dance, you will do everything. You'll be all singing, all dancing. You're a black boy. Anyway, and so my plan had to be, what is the next role? Ooh, what exam do my child or my children have? And that's how I structured my career. But I was really clear what I needed for the next level. Shadowing was absolutely amazing. And so, and this is why networking is so important. So as a result of being mentored by Rupert, his line manager at the time was the chief executive of the civil service, John Manzoni. So I got to reverse mentor John Manzoni for about 12 months. And so having those kind of connections, being in the boardroom, remember, I wasn't a board member, but I was in the room, shadowing, listening to the arguments, listening to how people presented things, so that by the time I got there, I kind of knew what it was like. I kind of knew what to expect. And so I always say to people, plan your career. You don't have to be free. You don't have to be extra like I am with spreadsheets and everything. But where do you see yourself? Let's even start with 5 years. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What do you need to do now? What courses do you need to do? What experience do you need? What roles do you need to take? An HR director. So if we think about it, HR is a big profession. Within our profession, HR business partnering is absolutely critical. I don't like HR business partnering. I'm just putting it out there. But I know I needed to do it in order to progress. And so with Rupert's support, at an HR business partner role, then a senior HR business partner role, I did a lot of shadowing around the HR profession. What does talent management feel like? What does ER feel like? What does pay and reward? Oh, no, thank you. And so really being clear within that profession in itself, what do I want to specialize in? I wanted to specialize in those areas that caused people to thrive within the workplace: well-being, employee engagement, diversity and inclusion, culture change. And so I got to the point where, okay, I've done this, I've got my chartered member, I know what I want, and this is the field I'm going to specialize in. And then I started intentionally taking roles and getting my experience. I touched, dipped into other sectors, shadowing in other sectors, spending time with people in other sectors to find out, what was the best, who were the best in class at particular things. And one thing I must say that Rupert really helped me with is really thinking futuristic. What is the future of work? The future, how it relates to my profession. We're talking about AI, we're talking about tech. And so before AI even became a thing, I was having conversations with Rupert about, the future of work, AI, automation, because he was really, really strategic in that place. And he helped me to kind of align my thinking in that way. And so what I will say to people, have a plan. Find a mentor. You might have more than one mentor. Find a mentor. At some point, you will have a sponsor. So I had a couple of sponsors within my career. My first senior civil service role, I was given an opportunity by Melanie Dawes. She's now the Dame Melanie Dawes. She's the chief exec at Ofcom. And, she gave me an opportunity. Why? Because there was something she had seen about me. Connected with her, done some networking, but I had a profile and I had a track record. And so it goes back to your personal brand. People mention your name and you're not in the room, what are they going to say? And so a combination of all of that certainly will help people to thrive. If you have an aspiration to get to the board, what do you know about the board? What is the requirement of a board? Could you volunteer at, on the board of a charity? Yeah. Are there opportunities to do that before you translate in the workplace? And so those are the kind of things that I've done throughout my career to support me getting to the board and being able to stay. I've been on King's board for 7 months, so I'm still new to the board at King's.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so finishing up, your top 3 calls for action for our viewers.
Oh my goodness, I can't give you 3, I'll give you more. But I always have my B's, Bernie's B's. Be yourself, that's really important. Be your best self, and what does that mean? Eat well, sleep well, keep good company, that's really, really important. Better yourself, so what do you need for the next level? That's investing in self-professional development. I always say be strong in yourself, resilience will come. Surround yourself with people so that you can bounce back. And the latest one on the block is big up yourself, because I needed to be, but celebrate yourself. If you don't celebrate yourself, who is going to celebrate you? But I do hope that everyone that listens to this recording, I hope you get something out of it. I'm on LinkedIn. You can look out for me on LinkedIn.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.